expected top 5 for us. I didn't expect us to keep doing this well, though.
One of the most decisive games of this spring, coming out with another 2-0 to start week 2. FlyQuest, they got the double, they've got the game.
전혀 못 이길 상대 아니라고 생각하고.
The Hextech ultimatum is issued and canceled by the blast code. Chasers grabbing the kill there. Dignitas will find their win in game number 2 and take this series 2-0.
충분히 이길 수 있을 거라 생각해.
High throws down the corner. He's gonna pop, and it is the double kill coming in for High as he goes down valiantly. They're on to Impact. That's the ace.
I was expecting us to kind of have a rough start, but we've been playing really well. Now I want to go to Vancouver and go to Worlds 100% for next split.
Welcome to Week 5 of the North American League Championship Series. You're joining us live from our studios here in Los Angeles, California. Getting a look at Coach Kopp now for Dignitas as well as FlyQuest making their way into the arena, braving the rain. We do have some torrential downpours here in Los Angeles, but hey, as if we need an excuse to come watch some NALCS, we've got it. Anyway, I'm James Dash Patterson, joined here by the brain and the brawn, Aiden Zyrene Moon. Thanks for bringing them both. You brought them both today, right?
I started going back to the gym, so yeah.
That's what I like to hear. We're not half-assing it here in the North American LCS. Let's start our day with a look at the standings. Cloud9 continue their undefeated hold of their first place, rather. TSM and FlyQuest are in second. Echo Fox, Phoenix1, and Immortals all share fourth place at 4-4, with our bottom-of-the-table team sitting just above Team Envy in 10th. We'll see who can break from the pack, starting with today's matches. Team Dignitas start out with a series against FlyQuest. After that, Envy put Phoenix1 sub-jungler Meteos to the test in our second match in the Battle Arena, and that's where I want to start. We got to talk about the switch-ups hitting the NALCS here in Week 5. Meteos in for Inori.
Yeah, really unexpected one, but Inori, he had some personal matters that he had to go take care of, so he will be out for the entire weekend. Meteos ended up traded to Phoenix1, so they're going to be able to play with him for the whole weekend. So what we had heard, though, is they actually have scrim time with Meteos. So they played about a week with him. I got to talk to Zig, catch up a little bit, and he was saying that I asked him how they feel, and he's like, we own right now. Like, he's actually feeling really confident, especially up against Envy today.
Yeah.
So he's coming in with confidence, but also he said Meteos, little rusty, but they had a really, really good scrim block.
To be expected. Glad they got a couple days of practice in under their belts. My big question here is, how do they deal with the play style differences between Meteos and what we know Inori loves to do?
Yeah, Inori loves to be really aggressive, deals the damage, ends up playing carry junglers. Meteos, on the other hand, a little bit more control, and that might be what Phoenix1 needs with Ryu, who can also be a bit of a loose cannon. So this might be an opportunity for Ryu to start shining a little bit more instead of having that shining star in the jungle. So we'll see, because Meteos, all about that control.
Oh, yes, we will see soon enough. But we also have to talk about the switch coming in for Team Dignitas. Coach Kopp, a returning face to the LCS here. No stranger to both the player position or the coach position.
Yeah, exactly. He's coached Echo Fox most recently, and also before that, Gravity. So he's used to Keen's unique champion pool, and that's been something that we haven't been seeing from that mid laner of Dignitas this split. Keen, this might be what unlocks him with the pick and ban and red side not being as locked into those 3 bans as before. So we'll see if Keen is able to open it up and if Kopp is the tool to use him.
And that's where this could become the most interesting, is that this week we're moving on to 7.3. We've seen the other regions play on it, and we've kind of seen how picks and bans change. You mentioned red side bans maybe not being the required 3 anymore. Could very much open up the likes of Dignitas and Kopp for some sweet champion selects.
And that's what's so cool about this patch, is it's actually a lot of nerfs, and it's mostly the OP just getting taken down a notch. So there's new things rising up, like Ryze, Varus still very powerful, and also Graves jumped up highly in priority, especially in NA with our aggressive junglers.
Right.
But across the board, supports that are controlling the lane, the 3 bans freed up from red side. Like, this is a really exciting patch for competitive, because I want to see what comes out in that red side ban.
We may have nerfed these champions, but lethality is still king. And so that's one thing we've got to keep track of.
And all of these champions are actually still good. They're still pickable, they're still playable, they're still up there. There's just more competition now. So there's so many things that you would like to ban, including a lot of these champions, but now it's like, okay, what are you crafting for your strategy in particular? And that's where I think having like a new coach like Kopp and a new perspective, maybe that'll help Dig too.
Swapping out players, swapping out coaches, swapping out patches. It's going to be a good, fun, interesting day to try and figure this all out. It's time to throw it over to the casters to get the games underway.
Thanks, Dash. Welcome, everybody, to the Battle Arena. I'm Julian Patriot Time Car, and laying claim to the seat next to me is Joshua Jatt Leesman.
Yep, my seat in this series is going to be pretty exciting, actually. I'm wondering what Cop can bring to Team Dignitas, and also if FlyQuest can bounce back from their loss in their series last week.
And with that, our first series of the day is, of course, a clash between Team Dignitas and FlyQuest. Last week, Team Dignitas got a much-needed win, breaking a 6-match losing streak.
Yeah, and the team has made a pretty large coaching change. Their 2 Korean coaches are out, and Cop is in, and he's only been with the team for 2 days. So even though they were able to beat Envy, the team still wanted to make a change, and it was a pretty quick one they wanted in for this week. So in that win against Envy, Team Dignitas were controlling Drakes, taking Barons, and operating more as a unit than we're used to seeing. So that's definitely something they're going to want to build on.
And it is great they're making those improvements, but they're going up against FlyQuest, who holds the #1 spot in objective control.
Exactly. They are first in Drake control, that is FlyQuest at 61.8%, and also first in Baron control at 73.1%. And they've also just been playing really well. This has clearly been a top 2 team in the North American LCS, so there's no way around it. It's an uphill battle for Team Dignitas today.
It really will be. And with that, we're going to check out the starting lineups. Loading up on the blue side to kick it all off is Team Dignitas. We'll see if the recent changes can help out here. In the top, it's Someday, Jungle Chaser, Mid, Keen, Bot, Lord, Support, X Special, and the new Coach Cop.
Gonna see how that works out for them. Pretty excited to see. Although going up against them on the red side is some very familiar faces in FlyQuest. We got Balls in the top lane, Moon in the jungle, High calling the shots in the mid lane, Altec and Bot with Lemon Nation, and Think Card, the coach.
And one of the fun things, which changed a lot on the patch, we're changing a coach here for Dignitas. I think this first draft will tell us a lot about the rest of the weekend.
Exactly. We've seen a few European LCS games on patch 7.3. We're still seeing very high pick and ban priority for the big 3 of Camille, Rengar, and LeBlanc, although none of them were 100% banned in the European LCS already. I personally think the bans to Camille were quite substantial, but she still has that insane engage range. And really, it's just a bunch of questions that these teams now have to answer, because this early in a patch, there's never a fully accepted way of doing pick and ban. So I'm hoping to see a lot of variance with where these teams throw their priority.
Yeah, and I think Cop definitely has a brain for the game, is quite proud of his personal drafting strategy, so we'll see if that can work out. And FlyQuest, Think Card, and probably Lemon Nation with the notebook as well.
Yeah.
They've been the ones that have done things different from day one.
Exactly. Lemon Nation has always been one of the legends of League of Legends drafting, and he has been variating from the norm already in the fact that they were kind of giving the other team LeBlanc, being willing to counter it, and trying to do those trades more aggressive than other teams. But the question you have to answer now is, what are the champions that you're even trading because of the nerfs to the top tier?
Well, you can see Varus Maokai banned for Team Dignitas as FlyQuest ban Rise, so already a change up here, although we'll see how the next 2 bans on this red side for FlyQuest pan out. There is Camille, so at least that's some consistency.
Exactly. Rengar and LeBlanc are still available. Right now, it'll be I have to wonder whether Team Dignitas is going to throw that ban right here. Instead, they go for Jace, which means FlyQuest have an opportunity to try and pull off that trade they've done plenty of times in previous patches.
And LeBlanc has been the champion that's been most left open, I'll say, when teams decide to leave one of those 3 open on the previous patch. So do FlyQuest ban Rengar and give that option, or do they leave both open? Kind of curious to see what this final ban is here, but not sure they want to take a risk in game 1.
They do. They're going to leave both open because this is something they've been able to do before. Moon is comfortable going against it. And this is what is also super cool and interesting. Shen was one of the champions in Europe, one of the 4 that had 100% presence in the pick and ban phase. So Team Dignitas obviously see a lot of value in that already. Although they have only played Shen once this split, it was a victory for Someday.
Well, Cassiopeia being that last ban, I mean, Shen is that first lock-in. FlyQuest go with Jin with Varus ban. That's nice, and Moon will take Rengar. So LeBlanc over here to dig. They didn't really feel like picking both those champions, giving Altec that 80 carry instead.
Exactly. LeBlanc nerfs were fairly heavily focused in the early game, greatly diminished the wave clear, and then by the end of the game, you still get the damage up there. Rengar nerfs was a little bit of range off of his Q dash, but most importantly, he no longer gets 1.5 seconds of crowd control immunity after using his empowered W, which makes it much easier for a team to trade back onto Rengar after he flies in, especially if you have something like Shen, who can quickly taunt him once he gets in there. But even with that, Moon still wants the Rengar.
Yeah, it has to be a bit more safe, I suppose, with the initiation, as Graves is the pick there for Chaser. This is the jungle of Flipper people are looking to, as there's actually a Ziggs locked in as well for Team Dignitas, so potentially, but also Bot as well is an option here with 2 strong 80 carries already taken away.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. I've actually seen the Ziggs versus the more spellcaster marksman work in the bottom lane but Ziggs is still a good mid laner. So I like the fact that Team Dignitas has already done that as a flex. Even though Kopp, as Team Dignitas' coach, doesn't really know the full champion pools of these guys yet, as he has pretty much just done 24 hours of scrims, something he did more than anyone else, thinking all the way back to when he was a coach for Gravity, was utilize flex picks very early on in drafts, and that has actually been something that teams haven't done much of this split. Ziggs could be a flex pick right here that goes mid.
I mean, Keen on Gravity as well had deep pockets, so we'll have to see if Kopp can work some magic in this draft. Karma pick for FlyQuest to end phase 1 means Malzahar will be banned by them, picking on supports. There's the Rumble ban away, so pretty infamous balls Rumble being taken, but Team Dignitas clearly picking on top lane here.
Exactly. They already have the Maokai and the Jace banned away. Looking at Balls' champion pool thus far, he still has the Nautilus that he's had 4 games on to the tune of a 100% win rate, so I wouldn't be too surprised if that comes through as the next ban for Team Dignitas since they're targeting top lane.
Balls is tanks only so far as well, with Maokai being banned and Ness LeBlanc actually, so maybe fearing that from high. 2 supports banned by FlyQuest with Zaro being their second ban, so lots open here for FlyQuest. Do they take a mid laner or maybe wait for the counter pick knowing that Ziggs is a flex pick? I'm kind of curious to see where FlyQuest go here, and I have to imagine pretty safe to pick Balls a tank here.
Yeah, I think so. I think the safe choice is just a Nautilus top lane, and
that's a Vladimir.
Go with the safe choice.
All right.
It could go mid or top lane. Speaking of the flex picks, and Vladimir was something they were just talking about in the pregame with some buffs on this patch. So it's another thing that has traditionally actually been a good lane into Shen, because Shen has such low kill threat and allows Vladimir to farm up. Well, we were expecting something different to happen. I wasn't really expecting Vladimir in the first game.
No, I wasn't either, but we'll see what FlyQuest can get done with it. Team Dignitas, though, do have a draft to finish here. So looks like support maybe open. Xpecial does love his playmaking champion, so there's Thresh for him. And they either have a mid laner or a bottom laner to go with, although Team Dignitas are leaving a lot open here, still with only 1 pick left.
Yeah, it's still a lot to decide. The Thresh is a good pick for Xpecial. He's a very experienced player, and Thresh has kind of always been in the meta, even though he's really meandered around to a lot of different support champions this year. This is his 9th unique pick. He's played it once before, actually won on it, and it leaves the door open for them. And there's that Zed.
Yep.
I think we know where he's going.
Yeah, looks like that's going to be mid Zed and Ziggs in the bot lane there for Lod. Thank you for reminding me, though. Xpecial experience is certainly a thing behind him. There's a Joven for FlyQuest. All right. So I was going to mention that Xpecial is 15 assists away from 2,000, so which will be the first player to ever reach that milestone. We've had 1,000 kills twice now. Turtle, congratulations, taking the lead last week. But let's talk about FlyQuest team comp. High with, that looks like mid lane Joven.
They're all in, and High seemingly has a counter pick to everything. You give him LeBlanc, he'll throw Caston in there, and kind of throwing it to Keen, who has been a guy who has the weird counter picks to everything. I love it as well, because they already had the Vladimir for magic damage, so they don't care about stacking physical damage in the mid lane and jungle. And it's just going to be lethality versus lethality, who can one-shot each guy first. And I think the Jarvan might actually win that. And
that was kind of the thing that Analysts were saying, is a lot of champions got changed in this patch, but the items were completely untouched. So lethality is just as good as it ever was. And you know what? We've had it in pretty much every position. Let's really bring it into the mid lane.
Yeah, and it's such a cool draft already. Yeah. We saw the potential for the Ziggs to go mid, but they had to lock in the Zed early and basically opt into a blind Zed pick, which High experienced last week. He had to play up against a Zillion. He has a different way of trying to counter the Zed, obviously. Much more all in on here, and I can't wait to see specifically the matchup in the mid lane, but also whether or not Balls on Vladimir can make it work here. First non-tank he's played in the top lane this split.
Gonna have to play more of a carry here, so I love it from FlyQuest. Mixing it up, as we, I think, kind of expected, moving into a new patch here. But we'll see what other surprises are in store for our first game between Dignitas and FlyQuest. It's already exciting, and we're only now onto Summoner's Rift.
Exactly. We kind of expected it, and you want to be able to bring some more flavor into this, because looking at last week, up until the Team Dignitas 2-0ing Envy was just on a completely downward trend. They started the year with a 2-1, then lost 3 series in a row 1-2, then lost 3 series in a row 0-2, and you're thinking, oh man, what's happening with this Team Dignitas team? They bring in Stunt, they win 2 games against Envy. Now they brought in Kopp, Xpecial starting, but it may turn into one of these 6-man rosters. And their draft has obviously gotten a little bit more interesting, but I think that pales in comparison to the intrigue of FlyQuest draft.
Yep, definitely a lot going on. Even Someday having a bit of extra fun. Triple rejuve bead, saying, you know what, Vladimir? I'm sick of you sustaining in lane with your transfusion and your 4 potions with your boots.
Yeah.
I will match that with as many beads as I can fit.
Okay, Shen does build Tiamat very early, so he can use some of the rejuve beads for that. I believe not all 3. There are other items that rejuve bead builds into. Off the top of my head, I honestly don't check because that's an item I've almost never built. It's one of the cheapest items in the game. That's why you can build 3 of them early on. But he will build all of those things, and it's to try and cut down on the harassment that Vladimir can put on him from range.
Well, we'll have to find out, but we did hear a bit from Freak, so we're going to toss to him to see what he had to say on the series.
Thank you very much. I talked to ThinkCard, the coach of FlyQuest, asked him about the Vladimir as well as the Jarvan. Said Vladimir's a good flex pick, got some buffs, worth playing, and he says a lot of teams aren't used to playing against it, so it could be a surprise factor. On Jarvan, said, well, it's a great anti-melee matchup, and he thinks that Hai's going to absolutely smash Zed on it, so that's the plan. Back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Freak. Love to hear that insight from ThinkCard. Makes sense, given what we saw, and Moon did manage to get his big raptor in the scuffle that happened, but no one died. You can see, though, that Rengar's still doing plenty of early damage, so Chaser can have to worry about face checking.
Yeah, even though Chaser did get 2 of the small raptors, I definitely think Moon wins that trade pretty handily. He's able to very quickly go for red buff. Meanwhile, Chaser's jungle is delayed, and none of Chaser's lanes got an advantage because of that invade. So early advantage there to FlyQuest with the Rengar.
Like the attempt though, so you have a look into bottom lane. Ziggs is something we've rarely seen in the NALCS. We're seeing a little bit of play earlier on. Cody's son does have a game winner already, but this is Lod's first game.
Yeah, and we've seen it a few times over in Korea. I know Bang has had a successful game on it than SKT, but this is really a pick that saw more success before the LCS started because people saw it as this new thing. Expect how to get very aggressive in the bottom lane. And it worked because it can hit power spikes earlier than traditional marksmen. It doesn't work as well into a Jhin, who is also building the lethality items and getting that very strong mid-game level of damage, but it's definitely still something that can potentially match the shove of a Karma Jhin.
That's cute invade from Lemon as well, warding up the red, but with the bottom lane roaming up towards him, takes the blast cone out of their jungle. Hai also continuing to keep track of Chaser, warding the Raptor camp out, making sure he has vision, and he's going to be playing aggressively in this lane like we expect, so smart to get that vision down as Lod is pushing these creeps back. CS is pretty even between the two, but looks like Altek and Lemon have the push advantage for now.
Exactly, and they're very confident in this push because of the deep wards Lemon Nation was able to get in the jungle of Chaser, as well as the failed early invade that Chaser had up in the Raptor pit. So I like what FlyQuest is doing here, just already having natural counter picks to pretty much every one of Team Dignitas' soul lanes, since they were able to see them first and then pick later, and then now just pushing in because they have vision of the jungle. Very smart play.
Yep. And again, Lod's going to have to play carefully. Can't really afford to trade early on as Balls was rotating down. Got some extra wards there for Hai, so FlyQuest investing heavily in that vision for their mid laner, making sure they can unlock Hai as much as they can. And one of the nice things about this pick for Hai is that not only does he want to play aggressively, and it does seem like a good counter pick here, particularly into melees, but if King's just going to get shoved in and hide behind his turret, Hai can freely roam with the Jarvan, particularly once he gets his ultimate.
Yeah, and FlyQuest has been very proactive with their moves pretty much this whole year, and already Moon counter jungling Chaser, and this is the beginning of unlocking Hai to continue this playstyle. So much of this snowballs on itself, and it's going to be tricky for Team Dignitas to pull themselves out of this one. Chaser doesn't even check there for Moon, so Moon also wasn't in the brush, so he didn't even spot Chaser there. This could be risky for FlyQuest.
Yeah, this is blind, but now
oh,
Chaser's going to show up. Good hook there onto Lemon Nation. Could be trouble. Damage coming through. Altek trying to trade, but first blood goes over to Dignitas. Moon here, but a little late. Chaser is going to get aggressive, but Moon went too far forward. Good flank special. Chaser flashes forward special. Last order. Oh, gets the Q, and there's 2 kills.
And that's exactly the type of play Team Dignitas needed to jump back in this game, pace your time, and it was quite honestly a series of unfortunate events for FlyQuest. Moon didn't sit in the brush as he was finishing Krugs, so he didn't see the Graves there. So by the time Lemon Nation has Chaser, notice the prediction-ish hook by X Special against the wall. Lemon Nation flashes straight into it, makes the Lantern even easier to take, and then it just kind of goes from bad to worse. Moon is very confident on this Rengar because of his early game burst, but it's basically a 3v1 right there, and everyone is able to flash follow. Lod eventually killing with that bomb, and guess what? He got a blue buff out of that, which is even better for their bottom lane.
Yeah, it turns out when your bottom laner is a Ziggs, blue is pretty nice as he's going back double thrones, lost chapter, and that control word for a bit of vision. So Blood looking pretty happy on the player cam. After that, Dignitas out to a early lead, 600 gold up with those 2 kills. We'll see if they can snowball any potential bottom lane advantage. And Great play from Chaser to get things going in the right place at the right time. High, though, still having a good time here. Keen, playing safe.
Yeah, and this is actually a super aggressive move by High. Doesn't quite get the kill, and here comes the roam from Team Dignitas. Special has a bit of a wait from bottom lane.
Oh, good flash there from High. Very patient. Gets some poke back down there as well. Keen lucky to live the all-in. Does have his ultimate now. Going to shove up this lane with a bit of help and see what High decides to do. Pretty healthy, though.
Yeah, Chaser helping Keen shove in here because Keen actually saved both summoner spells where both of High's were burned. I like what High did there, knowing he had the shove advantage and knowing he was going to get the level 6 first and attempting the kill. But when he fails to convert that, that now swings the power in the lane back over to Keen. And X Special was able to roam up there because there was a blue buff on the Ziggs and he didn't need help in that lane temporarily. So I do like the roam from X Special, who's had a pretty rough year.
I mean, you can already see just how different the shove advantage looks now that Ziggs has some level and particularly has his early item buys in that blue. So things turning around nicely. We'll see if this can cascade into more advantages for Dignitas or if FlyQuest can do what they've always done and continue to make plays around that mid-game. High right now is going back to base. I imagine there'll be some sort of lethality purchases made. As you can see, Keen already has his Dirk and an early longsword. Corrupting potion there for High, and there's a pickaxe actually with 2 longswords, so incredibly aggressive first item purchases.
Yeah, basically just going for raw AD. That can also help the Jarvan with being able to clear the back wave of minions very easily. You can QE the back wave, I believe, with those items and still one-shot it, so he's going to want to out-shove there. But here comes Chaser. No flash on Moon.
Moon got the red buff though. Sunday misses the taunt. He's now invis. They're going to try and find him out. Moon trying to get himself out of the way. Heals up with the W. Ulti there from Chaser. Commits for the kill, but not nearly enough.
No, and good jukes by Moon, but you have to call out Someday there for the missed taunt. Coming in, knowing Moon is without flash, Someday having a flash taunt available, not going for it. I think if that taunt lands and Someday gets the pass-through Q when he takes it through, I think Chaser and Someday easily pick up that kill, but missed execution means Shen ult down, no kill.
Good damage there in the mid lane as X Special could be in a spot of bother. Lemonation trying to get the tether on, but doesn't finish that off. Altac still shooting minions as he's now going to find Someday, who I think just caught him. Chaser here as well. No, Moon's going to leap in. Someday has to put up the Spirit's Refuge. Jukes back towards his teammate. Moon still leaping in. Balls is here as well. And they just can't face check blind. Looks a little too dangerous.
Yeah, they're really respecting the early game damage of a Graves because they had a large health advantage coming into that. And essentially the ultimate up from Balls is Vladimir. So I think they could have won that, but they just were playing it conservatively, thinking they're going to outscale that lane.
In the meantime, Balls having a perfectly fine time in that 1v1 matchup. Someday did commit his ultimate for a kill, then missed it onto Moon, and now Balls is just doing Vladimir things. Every time you gain some CS, you gain more levels. Vladimir only gets stronger, and Shen can't really afford to push Vlad out of top lane at any point. And Someday, you can see how defensive he has to go because he's just going to continually get shoved in by this Vladimir.
Yeah, I mean, Someday is basically just trying to play the survival game, not getting aggressive whatsoever, and they basically get to take shots when his ultimate's up because Balls isn't going to harass him low with the defensive build that Someday is going. And when they miss that shot, it relieves a lot of pressure from FlyQuest. I'm still expecting Moon and High to try and make an aggressive play with Rengar ultimate coming back up again, and just the general style of FlyQuest.
Nice plant usage there from Chaser. Spots Moon with the Scry's Bloom and clears out FlyQuest pink ward that was just above the red buff. Chaser still on wall clearing duty, going for everything right now. Able to shoot this down pretty comfortably. And High, I mean, he wants to play aggressive, but Keen's able to push up more. I feel like that first gank kind of forced High's pressure back a little bit. FlyQuest could have opened up this game and really snowballed it, but Dignitas have done a good job controlling the early phase.
Yeah, I also think the roam mid lane after Fly's kill attempt, burning his flash, has prevented him from playing more aggressively. With all that being said, though, the gold in the junglers is even. Moon has been out farming so much of Chaser, and this stems from the early game disadvantage Chaser had and all the early wards FlyQuest put in that jungle, that the game itself is coming very close to equalizing, with the majority of the gold actually being on Laud Ziggs. As you can see, 600 gold ahead of Altec. That's pretty much the whole advantage is in that bottom lane completely. Everything's slowing down a bit. Looks like Keen might be looking for a back right now, just shoving things in. Back did come from the bottom lane of FlyQuest as Altec gets some Swifty boots and a few more swords. Laud probably looking for Morellonomicon, which he should be close to, if not there already. And Keen and Chaser going to play the donation game. Keen go ahead, gets a level up and the blue buff, so things looking good so far as Moon maybe fancying an invade here on the left side. Blue buff on Zed for the extra energy regeneration is actually better than you'd expect He's very spammy in lane and actually does have to wait on the energy fairly often, so I can understand that hand up, even though Chaser is a mana user.
Nice ult there from Lot, actually. Did chunk out Altac, and he's going back anyway, so no real reason to save the ultimate. Not going to get too far from bottom lane anyway to try and get an ulti down. And Xpecial teaming up with Chaser to roam through and try and find some wards as Moon makes his way to the top lane.
Yeah, Moon's just going to continue to try and make a play here. It's pretty difficult to dive a Shen since he does have the W that can come up to block his auto attacks. I'm wondering what he's going to try and pull off here.
Humble went aggressive, maybe that's the key. Chemo play down, good flash from Sumner, but they're going to keep chasing. Balls pulls his way up, ulti's there, needs one more Q, maybe a little bit more. The shield, it wears up, but they're just going to chase it in. Sumner can't go anywhere, and Balls gets the kill.
I mean, credit to Moon for having the presence of going up there. We haven't been able to watch the top lane, but I'd have to imagine Someday had been taunting aggressively fairly often. Otherwise, that gank doesn't seem like it's going to work. But Someday used the taunt and the Spirit's Refuge very early, and that allowed Moon to have perfect timing on that gank, and that's huge for FlyQuest.
Excellent read from FlyQuest jungler, and they get themselves the early turret gold as well. Balls off to a lead versus Someday. Didn't think I'd be saying that one in 2017.
Yeah, this has been a bad game for Someday. Even though he hasn't played much Shen this year, and it was a bit of a denial pick, he hasn't been landing his taunts, and he's now fallen in lane. So Team Dignitas trying to get something back on the other side of the map with Lot and Xpecial.
And these are the things you can do with Ziggs in your bot lane. Great abuse of the early kills. Chaser got his bottom lane, and a good conversion on the turret. Ziggs with that satchel charge able to literally demolish the turrets down. So he's feeling good so far. As High and Keen still doing battle. Ghostblade done now for Keen. High has got a back in, but didn't get too much done. So Raider Dirk and a cloth arm is not a completed item. Balls on the other side though has his proto belt, so feeling pretty good about the 1v1.
Exactly. I do feel like High's probably going to go Ninja Tabi as well against the Graves and the Zed. Not to mention the ability to move a little bit faster since Keen doesn't have any boots yet, and closing the distance in these assassin matchups can be very important.
In the meantime, though, it's getting shoved in for a little while longer. Sums are back up, but has been fairly well contained after his early lane pressure. And we'll see what FlyQuest do with their dual lane, and it's the same for Dig as well. You can see Xpecial and Lod still roaming around, likely want to go to seat another lane here. Maybe mid's a decent candidate. High. Ooh. Saw a target, but doesn't go for it.
Yeah, I mean, once you miss your EQ on Jarvan, your damage diminishes greatly, especially before you have those built-up one-shot items. So Team Dignitas able to kind of play around the bottom side of their map a little bit here. Something we haven't said at all this year, but is their main advantage here. Taking the first bottom turret, getting first blood bottom, and then also getting the Drake.
Bit of momentum from the jungle is maybe all they needed. Chaser really set that one up. Balls, though, still shoving in towards their tier 2 at a quick pace. Dig did get the Cloud Drake on the other end of that deal, so we'll have that objective for themselves as Moon is looking for something here in the mid lane. Keen, ooh, good flash. Someday in as well. Commits to Stand United to make sure Zed stays safe, but just a few cooldowns there.
Yeah, a really early ignite by High, actually, because of how quickly Keen flashed out with the Shen ultimate, so wasn't even close to the kill. Now they once again try and go for Someday. That will be a bit of a journey.
Taunty's way out, so Moon with a good ultimate there, but Someday playing smart and backing away. High's been playing for a long time. Probably thought he had 5 extra AD there, but that's not how Ignite works anymore.
Would have given him the kill. Easy.
Instead, Lot and Xpecial move themselves in the mid lane, and I imagine they'll be sitting here for a little while. Lot is very threatening on the turret. Silk Shoes, Merlinomicon is a good early itemization for the Ziggs.
Absolutely, it's exactly what you want. Bottom lane Ziggs does switch between Lichbane and Ludens for their next item. Lichbane more turret pushy, Ludens much more spell damage. I prefer the Ludens actually because you already need a massive lead just to get to the turrets, and they don't have it right now with the game being pretty much locked even.
Blue buff over to High. We're going to start that up. Chaser is here. Ultimate? Yeah, he's going to try. Oh, he got it. Oh, good steal.
Perfect steal, and blind as well. He got to see them pull it into the brush and then was like, you know, maybe I'll just use an ultimate now. Perfect. Steals the blue buff away. That will again kind of allow Keen to keep shoving into that mid lane, at least until his ultimate's back up again. And also Keen switched to the bottom lane, so it's the Ziggs that is now pushing in because that's their demolitionist style.
Yeah, you can see High. I mean, he's going to have to play safe in this long lane, but still plenty of threat there out onto Keen, particularly with Edge of Night now finished. Can get in Zed's face pretty comfortably. Altac does have his own Ghostblade, so shouldn't be too bad here, but I imagine Zig should have a push advantage given that he's a mage and was a champion in the mid lane known for strong pushing power. You can see Xpecial and Lemon doing battle, but Xpecial's going to get the better of that ward battle.
Yeah, and especially at this point in the game, the Ziggs will have the advantage with the Morellonomicon being completed. And I'm really wanting to see how proactive Team Dignitas can be, especially playing around the other 4. This is a divergence from the normal story of, Someday is doing well, but the rest of the team is doing bad. Actually, the rest of the team is doing quite well. It is Someday who is behind in this game. So this is a different Team Dignitas than we've seen for most of the year.
It certainly is. Blue buff steal. Ulti from Lod, but doesn't get it. Little late.
Yeah.
Ball's going to take it. Not the best candidate, but might as well steal it away. Someday, as you can see, wants nothing to do with the 1v1 versus Vladimir, and Balls is going to continue building that lead as long as he can. As Lod clears out another wave of creeps. They almost had the push there with 4 members about 30 seconds ago, but Log going to go back, do some more item buying, and things, again, going to stay a little slower here. 1 turret apiece. Gold lead is kind of there for FlyQuest, but it's pretty much nothing at this stage. Just that Cloud Drag up for Dignitas as far as overall advantages go.
Yeah, and I actually feel like FlyQuest is quite comfortable with their scaling this game, since they're the team with the marksman. And Jhin isn't necessarily like one of your Caitlyn hyperscaling marksmen, but I do feel that it still scales better than the bot lane Ziggs. Not to mention the Vladimir versus Shen is just comical. Like, the late game Vladimir is an absolute monster, and Balls isn't there yet. So I think that's kind of why we're seeing a little bit less proactivity from FlyQuest than we're used to. They have been a very active team in the mid game. That's with very early game compositions and also with leads. So now that they have some good late game insurance in the Vladimir, and they've been behind, they're just kind of playing neutral and waiting for Team Dignitas to make a mistake while they scale up.
Nice dodge there from Moon, though. Xpecial look for the hook, but Moon jukes out of the way. Keen still pushing up here, so Dignitas do have a lot of pressure towards this right-hand side. Infernal Drake up in a minute 50, so they can play to that objective when it appears. But again, like you said, FlyQuest happy to play back. No need to rush things, although High, if he finds an opportunity, will look for a kill. Unfortunately for him, he's been the target of a lot of early attention this game.
Oh yeah, I think it's really interesting too that he's gone Edge of Night so early, often kind of reserved for mage matchups because of that 35 magic resist, but being able to put up a spell shield on a 30-second cooldown that lasts for 10 seconds, so essentially every wave allowing him to walk up, still valuable even if it's blocking physical damage spells, and High recognizes that. That's why he's built Edge of Night. Kind
of funny to see if Keen oopsies and clicks the ZL at the wrong time, because there's certainly a possibility, but very unlikely that will happen. Altec and Lod still doing battle. Elimination's been anchored to this lane because he does need to help Altec push these waves out, which has given Xpecial opportunities to ward aggressively and to roam, particularly towards High. But Dignitas, I think, also happy to play it slow. They know that the game might be on some sort of timer, but they don't need to rush things down and really push it just yet. They can build up an advantage, and then snowball in mid-game and try and crush it early, it later.
That is definitely the hope when you're in a close game like this, but you do have to kind of call back to some of Team Dignitas' struggles. Even though they were able to beat Envy last week, their previous series, they actually had an hour plus of in-game time against Immortals without a kill. So they have definitely struggled to make plays happen. This game, the playmaking is pretty much on Xpecial and Someday. Someday's already having a relatively bad game, and Xpecial has been playing a little bit more passive this game because he's dying a lot in those other games when trying to make plays. So a lot to still work on from Team Dignitas, and they don't have a good track record thus far of actually making things happen in close games. They'd want to start it here.
FlyQuest are grouped as 5 here, so we'll see how they make this play. Xpecial going to find it, but it could be too late. Lot gets caught up all in, and that should be a kill. High able to take that down. Vladimir here doing good damage as Keen in the thick of it. Almost gets up, but Ball takes him out. Someday late snipes Elimination with a taunt auto, and now Moon getting chased down by the Graves. Ball plays back in. He went aggressive with a flash. Altec flashes in for the last order and gets a kill. Now Moon fighting Someday through the Spirit's Refuge. Great taunt flash gets Someday another kill. Oh, but the last of it, Altec able to take him down. Someday got a triple kill, but Altec cleaned up the rest.
Well, Someday is back in the game, but this is still advantage FlyQuest because they have 2 strong physical damage dealers that are able to take down this turret after the fight. And pace through time, that fight was a bit of a mess, all things considered. They just flew into each other, and funnily enough, it started with them trying to go on Xpecial as he was the most forward-facing on the Team Dignitas roster.
Well, that was a bit more than a mess, I think, but FlyQuest, I'll take that out of turret. No one gets the Infernal Drake for now, as we'll watch this chaos again.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. Notice as well, the Lantern is down at the start of this, so there's nothing to save Laud from the barrage of FlyQuest, so I love their initiation. But Keen actually got a bunch of AoE damage off in this fight, as did Chaser, which means when Someday enters, he actually can have a pretty good fight here. Notice how he's holding on, to his spells fairly well, staying close, and then waiting until he needs to finish a kill for the taunt. And this was actually really slick. The flash taunt into the lantern has just come back up, but unfortunately, the 4th Jin bullet was already in the chamber, so that was able to finish him off. And Altec, good positioning throughout that entire fight, reaps the rewards.
Could have another fight on our hands as well. Infernal Drake is up, and teams are positioned very far forward for a face-off.
Stack it up, let's do it again. If Team Dignitas is going to group like this, here comes FlyQuest.
Moon's ulti, there's bullets as well from Jin. Someday blocking him, but Chaser gets tagged by another. Someday taking the next one. Log gets sniped by the other. High, looking to go all in. Finds Log, destroys him almost in the backline, but Dignitas almost turn it around. High will go down, and Someday is low. Moon trying to fight his way out of the corner, can't do it. Now Keen, all in Zaltek, that's going to be a kill. And Balls all of a sudden is left alone. Dignitas wiped FlyQuest there.
And this is the type of game you love to cast Pastry Time, because they are just throwing
Balls is dead here as well, I think.
Unless he gets Keen first.
Good pull. Balls gets Chaser, needs a few more.
He gets two.
Another. Balls with a double kill, keeps him in it.
All right, that's a fight for you. Dead even gold, but both Drakes going over to Team Dignitas, and this is the type of scaling we're talking about when we see Vladimir, and he's not even late game yet. We're gonna watch this one more time. FlyQuest doesn't get as clean of as an initiation as they would like. Notice how when High goes in, his EQ doesn't actually do damage. So his entire ultimate is just the ult and the auto afterwards, so he doesn't have the burst to instantly kill Log. That lets Log go through a full rotation of spells, and also in the backside, no one is saving Altec, who was positioned very well in the previous fight. So Keen didn't have to worry about any assassinations, was able to clean up the backside. And then here, I mean, you just got to credit Balls' Vladimir for staying alive. Kite's back to where he knows he's not going to stay alive, but gets close enough to Chaser to finish him off. And then the fact that Keen can't get through to click on the lantern / wants to finish the kill to allow Balls to pick up the double almost equalizes the fight if you don't count the Infernal Drake.
Well, Balls getting pretty strong right now. Proto Zhonya's and a 3rd major item on the way. So we'll track his progress as the fights break out again. But absolute chaos means that we went from 3 kills at about 15 minutes to 18 at 23. And you can see the Dignitas fans starting to get a little louder after that exchange.
Yeah, also, Special Watch, 9 assists currently in the game. I believe he needs 5 more to get to 2,000 or 6. We'll get confirmation
15,
on
he
that.
needs 6.
So he needs 6 more assists to get that record. It could actually happen this game, and based on Team Dignitas' track record, you wouldn't have thought that would be possible. He's had plenty of really low assist games so far this year, and then even last week getting subbed out for Stunt, you were wondering if he was going to be able to hop into the starting lineup again, but a decent performance so far on Thresh, and with how active this game has been, chance we could see the milestone hit.
Well, Lichbane was the item for Lord, and they get mid-outer turret as a result. Balls, though, continuing his dominance of side lanes, will take down the mid-outer. So FlyQuest still up in turrets. They're up in gold technically as well. But this game is far too close to call at this point. And Baron is also up. And given the way these teams are playing, I wouldn't be surprised if either of them just started it with a snap of the fingers.
Yeah, High popping both actives right now, but he's pretty much on his own.
Yeah, 1v4 right now. Gonna get played back in. Gonna try and destroy someone. Keen destroys him instead.
Yeah, caught completely out of position. And actually, Someday doing some work.
All right, this is the real 1v1. Yeah, Someday's like, no, I don't want to deal with this. Ball just walks the way out. Did get his teleport canceled, though. Tried to help out High. And now there should be another turret for Dignitas. They just demolished them with the 6.
Yeah, checking Laud's skill order. He's not maxing his satchel charge, so currently 27.5% is the percent health he can execute turrets on. But you race against a Grave Zed Ziggs, I think you're going to lose. This is a bunch of a turret race, and it's a game of chicken. These are big mini waves for both teams. Neither team actually has wave clear, so we may see an inhibitor trade.
I mean, High is dead, but he's still making the call. Looks like Fly actually have the better tempo here, especially going back. There's another turret, but the inhibitor is on first for FlyQuest. Someday can't get in at all.
I mean, it's just going to be High back in the base, and you're wondering if they're going to actually try and defend this. Balls is very low. Someday and Xpecial are fighting.
The Xpecial also back. Altec now turns his attention to the fight. Balls trying to take one now, but Xpecial going to live for a little while longer. Mid and him goes down, but Dig already took the top in here. Very interesting trade.
Yeah, it ends up being a pretty punishless trade because both teams walk away with everyone alive, although it's definitely a little bit dicier on the side of FlyQuest, as Someday did a lot of work to get FlyQuest relatively low, and after that poor start, his Shen is turning into a bit of a monster. We're going to have to track that throughout, but speaking of which, the death cap has been completed by Balls' Vladimir, so we're just in for a little bit more chaos.
I mean, this game's been a treat since the draft started, so has delivered so far. almost 26 minutes through an Ocean Drake up in a mid at 45, but I think teams have eyes on the big prize. Baron is up and available, and Chaser and Keen, again, I would not be surprised if the team started at the drop of a hat. Chaser's going to clear this board out and at least make FlyQuest think about it.
Yeah, and I'm really curious to see if the way these teams approach team fights changes at all. Mainly because FlyQuest was trying to go all in on Laud, and if they don't stop him before he can get his burst out, that kind of sets the table for the rest of the executes to happen. But they're going one more time. Who can they get?
They're looking for special right now. Moon able to kind of tag that up, but he takes a little too much damage. Bullet there, but Someday blocks it. Now King going to dive in onto Moon. Damage is there from the Zed. That should be a kill. Pop is there, and that's enough. Someday straight into it, though, under high and high. Going to try and blow them up on the other side, but they managed to CC him for long enough. Dignitas with 2 clean ones.
Yeah, these dives aren't working for FlyQuest, and that's a big problem, because if High keeps jumping in like that, it's easily getting turned around. The Shen shield, the locket that's been completed by Expecial's Thresh, not to mention the shielding from Dark Passage, is preventing the assassination from both Moon and High. They're going straight for Baron. Balls is in base, so unless this is a random steal from a Karma or a sneaky W from the Jhin, it's Baron for Team Dignitas.
Well, see if Eliminators can tell his teammates there's the W. Arctic tries a bit. Baron, Team Dignitas.
He didn't even hit the Baron, he missed.
That's awkward.
He hit a player, but he tried. That would have been something. And that's actually a Nexus turret that has fallen on the side while they were defending that, so an even worse series of events for FlyQuest. Watch this one more time, though. Watch High. He just doesn't get in where he wants to, and it's Moon who goes in without him. It was a Zigzalt as well as a play, so High wasn't going to try and jump in. He then misses his EQ as King is assassinating Moon, and then tries desperately at the end to pull something out, but he's just not getting the clean combos he wants on the Jarvan, and Team Dignitas is punishing.
And comp-wise, FlyQuest need everybody in at the same time
Yes.
if they're going to dive. Balls is way in the back line, not able to get in there and join the heavy dive of Rengar and Jarvan, so hasn't been working out for FlyQuest. Dig have played really well, both in and out on either side of the fight front. So they've got Baron buff for themselves and a solid gold lead. We'll see what damage they can do.
Yeah, and I think it goes a little bit from bad to worse for FlyQuest here with the Zonias being completed by Laud, because now he can just Zonias the initial dive after he casts ultimate and try and turn it around. FlyQuest essentially have 3 all-in champions plus the Jhin. So now that we're seeing a little bit of a fed Ziggs here, even though he's just 1, 2, and 9, but the items that are being completed, and then kind of burst resistance on the rest of the champions of Team Dignitas, their fights are very strong at this 28-minute point of the game.
And they're sticking together as well. Ball's going to get himself the blue buff, but Altek zoned off this turret. Dignitas should be able to take it down. Laud might not even be needed for this particular assassination, and isn't. Just throws an auto in, excuse me. Able to take that down with a Lich Bane. So 7 turrets to 5 now. Remember, inhibitors got traded at a random point in the game as well, so super minions causing some problems for Dignitas as they try and push down mid lane, but FlyQuest always have to deal with top lane.
Exactly, and I love how Team Dignitas push mid lane right there with their advantage to kind of make it so the super minions that would pile in for mid lane aren't going to be a problem for quite a while, using this time to just continue sieging up. They've got the Ziggs, they've got the Thresh to try and get picks at the turret, and they're going to just try and brute force through to this second inhibitor. I almost feel like if FlyQuest doesn't do a flank initiation, they're going to get rid of this inhibitor, and here they come.
Sounds like they heard you because they're going in for it. Moon all the way around, and Balls is going to join him. This is the setup for Dignitas. Someday, though.
Someday caught him, though.
Balls. Now Moon caught out as well. They're going to go all in for it. Balls has to try and find it out. Chaser gets his way out as high. It's already a little too low. Redemption down as Expecial caught up, but Balls has gone down. That's the main damage for FlyQuest. And now Someday using that ultimate to try and protect his teammates. FlyQuest just lost one for free there.
Someday way ahead of that play, and he stops FlyQuest from seeking that engagement. Also, Chaser juking out of the double assassination attempt from the rest of the team. Team Dignitas looking great.
Going to be a triple inhib perhaps here as well. Keen already working on the turret, should be able to take it down. Another inhib looking to fall here as well, and Dignitas might just go for it all.
It's a 5v4 and they're pretty low, but with 3 inhibitors down, the game is almost in the bag. It's rather risky, but I agree they might just go for this one, Pastry.
Might as well try for it. Moon going to try and defend here, but the Baron buff still up for longer. Someday Flash Taunt forces a flash out.
Oh, they got Moon.
Inhib back, but Moon's just trying to kite them out of the base, but Dignitas don't care. They're just going to look for the turrets here. One Nexus turret already dead. Second one going to fall down. Nexus now exposed.
FlyQuest got to fight.
Have to do something here, but the Nexus is getting wailed on. Keen goes back into high for a bit of a revenge, and Dignitas plow through them.
And that's now 3 game wins in a row for Team Dignitas. They 2-0'd Envy last week. They made a coaching change 2 days ago with Cobb, and now they're 1-0 up on FlyQuest, the second place team in the league.
I mean, very curious drafts from both teams. Really great to watch. I think FlyQuest could kind of tell when the comp started falling behind, it was a little trickier to get things going. But that game was close for a long while, almost the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, even when it was 10 kills to 8 after a bunch of that chaos, the gold was exactly even. But we talk about FlyQuest playstyle a lot, and we're absolutely ready to praise them when the all-in, all-the-time works. But there are also costs to that when you're going so aggressively and completely following on calls. When it doesn't work, it ends up backfiring. And in a sense, even though Team Dignitas had one of their more active games here, most of it was them just reacting to FlyQuest diving them. Team Dignitas almost had some of their weaknesses made up for in this game because FlyQuest kept diving into them. And it works for them, obviously. Now they're one game away from taking down FlyQuest.
In general, it seems so much cleaner. Yes, they're playing quite passively, but using the map well, taking objectives, had consistent Drake control. Things definitely looking good there for Dignitas. But for their take on that Dig win, we are going to send it back to Dash and Zyrene.
Thank you very much, Pastry Time. Now, I can confidently say that that game did not go in any way, shape, or form the way I thought it was going to, from Champion Select to who won, or to finish, rather. So let's start in Champion Select and walk through this. We did expect to see some differences arise, but as we pull up the pick ban graphic, I want to take a look at, in particular, what FlyQuest does here in their picks, coming out with the Vladimir and the Jarvan.
Yeah, it was super interesting because those end up coming in the second phase as their last picks here. Dignitas, they take away the Shen, which at first you're like, okay, Rengar was up for Chaser, and last time Dig played FlyQuest, they gave over Rengar.
Right.
And that was a deathless game for Moon, and he said afterwards it was kind of dumb that he was able to get this champion.
Exactly.
With 13 KDA, ridiculous. But right here, that Ziggs is actually the really interesting one here because they match AD carry / bot lane in a way here, but that could possibly be a flex for Keen. We've seen it played, I think, once internationally in the mid lane, so it's a little bit of a flex, but at the same time, that's enough wave clear regardless of who you draft in the mid lane, so you can draft an assassin, you can draft something like Zed later on. So they've set themselves up with an interesting core here. So I actually think as we continue this on...
Right, so ban phase 2 is going to come through. We see top lane, mid lane bans going over to FlyQuest from Dignitas and standard support bans here for the Karma. Vladimir gets picked up. This is a nice flex. We've, of course, seen it against Shen in the past, but we've also seen it in the mid lane. So that's a nice opener here in phase 2, knowing that you'll have the counter pick still to come.
Yeah, the Vladimir, really interesting. It did get buffed, and then they picked the Zed, even though they don't know if it's mid, they don't know if it's top, but the Jarvan was really the kicker for me because this is like they want to run a combination here. This composition relies on having a good engage, blowing somebody up, and having Balls do well as your backup. And honestly, a lot of those didn't happen. Balls did have a pretty good game for himself, CS lead, and able to actually pick up a few kills here and there.
Yeah.
But they were never able to really 100-0 anybody. And I think a lot of that credit is deserved to Xpecial and the item builds of Dignitas. They were very smart about the way that they built.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and take a look at a team fight. It's going to illustrate exactly that. So 21 minutes into the game, down around Dragon. This is a FlyQuest fight, right? They are starting this fight off, but Dignitas is going to turn it around.
Yep, jumps in. They're actually prepared for a high here. They saw him with a ward about to come over, and then everybody collapses, and that's really Keen to be wanting the bottom lane on the right side of this fight. So they actually have a bit of a numbers advantage in that left portion for Dignitas, and then they pick everybody up. Even though High got the burst off, that's kind of the make or break fight. Because if they win this fight decisively for FlyQuest, they start snowballing. They get item advantages, they get ahead. Balls does pick up a few kills here in retaliation with the E being in his Sanguine pool.
Yep.
And that's actually really good for them, but you really wish you were able to 100-0 them with that first initiation, because from there, Dignitas has enough gold to pick up Locket, pick up Steric's Gauge for their Graves. They already have a Shen to provide a shield for somebody else.
Right.
And then the Zonias for Ziggs. That's kind of the death sentence there, and the last nail in the coffin for the FlyQuest composition is that the builds from Dignitas really sealed it.
And there's a couple things here, though, that we can look at from the side of FlyQuest and be critical about. Number one, Moon built tank.
Yeah.
Right? Which is a conscious decision, and maybe they were thinking we need some form of frontline where we're not getting it from our top lane because we have a Vladimir who's not going to necessarily play the role of a frontliner. But in doing so, they've nerfed, or rather lessened, their ability to assassinate a player. And we saw in that replay there, Jarvan goes in, brings a bunch of people down to about 30% health. Well, how wonderful would it be to have a Rengar flying in with an empowered Q and a W to finish it all off had he built damage? And maybe we see the game go entirely differently.
Yeah, that's an all-in. Your build also has to be all-in. You can't really play it safe. You have to just put all the cards on the table and say, we're killing you or we're dying trying. And that's what I think FlyQuest pulled back a little bit when they started to get scared that they weren't able to 100-0 Dignitas. But I do think that Dignitas deserve a decent amount of praise for their builds, because if you look at the composition from FlyQuest, what's the win condition? Okay, they lack wave clear. If Balls gets ahead, then they have magic damage threat, but they have so much physical damage, and they just try to burst, and it's all front-loaded. It's mostly front-loaded DPS there.
Right.
So if you just build Sterix Gauge, you build these things, Special had some really good exhausts when High was jumping in, that's how you're able to win the game, and that definitely credit deserved to Dig there.
All right, player of the game going to Keen, though, this time around. Playing on the opposite side of that Jarvan matchup in the mid lane, probably knows it from his perspective, doesn't have to play against it too often, and still performs here on the Zed, just in that fight, as you mentioned, kind of soloing out the back line of FlyQuest.
Yeah, the 2v1, able to actually separate it, because if you have a dive composition, they really want those shields from Karma, and he's zoned off by the Zed. They really want to have Altec in there to pick up the finishers with the % missing HP final shot and bouncing grenades, but Altec really just gets an ultimate in the fight, Karma dies, and then he gets picked up afterwards. So good job by Keen.
And I think honorable mentions here go to Someday and Xpecial. As you talked about, for this team, it's about weathering the storm of the assassinations, right? And so key exhausts, locket usage, as well as the ultimates from the Shen are what are keeping the carries alive, allows the fights to fall in Dignitas' favor.
Exactly. Now let's temper this a little bit, because that's not going to happen every game for Dignitas.
That's true.
Right? FlyQuest, that's actually the weirdest draft I've ever seen right now so far in the 2017 split. It was really off the walls. Dignitas can't rely on that every game. If they're able to continue to adjust to the enemy win condition and see that coming, then that's good for them. But there were also some times where they had split fights. They weren't exactly on the same page. That one where Xpecial throws a lantern to Someday, and then Someday gets killed afterwards anyway, and that's a one FlyQuest fight. That goes even worse for them. That's a completely different game. So they have to be on the same page, because it looked like some were saying, let's go in. Let's not. So they have to
I do have to say, I like the idea of the Ziggs pick here against FlyQuest in particular. When we look at teams in the North American LCS and how they do in the early game, FlyQuest, one of the teams that isn't getting out to any massive early game leads. They'll usually play it a little bit slower, right? They're fine. High is super comfortable going to the late game and winning a game there. I love the idea of a Ziggs pick because it can really push the pace of the game in terms of taking turrets. We didn't exactly see it happen here because so many fights
We saw a base race.
Yeah, we did see a base race, and so many fights broke out that we never really had that opportunity to siege and actually push turrets down. But I like this idea that a Ziggs pick, which for no other I can't think of any other reason why it would come back this time around, having not been in the patch itself. I like it as an idea of pushing the pace against FlyQuest and putting them in a position where, oh, we've got a 3 or 4K deficit now with 3 turrets down. We can't climb back from that.
Yeah, and especially since FlyQuest don't really have a lot of wave clear themselves, that definitely put Dignitas in a pretty fairly easy win condition and fallback plan.
All right, well, Dignitas come out with game number 1. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, game 2 between Team Dignitas and FlyQuest. Don't go anywhere. You're watching North American LCS.
Playing versus Balls elimination will have you sweating bullets anyways. You're going to lose all that weight.
Yeah, this is blind, but now oh, they got show up. Good hook there onto elimination. Could be trouble. Damage coming through. Altec trying to trade, but first blood goes over to Dignitas.
Flash, flash. Nice. Okay. Let's do flash. I have lantern 2. Oh my god. Alright. Okay. My bad there.
High will go down, and Sunday is low. Moon trying to fight his way out of the corner, can't do it. Now Keen all in Zaltek, that's going to be a kill. And Balls all of a sudden is left alone. Dignitas wiped FlyQuest there.
Unless he gets Keen first.
Then, good pull. Balls gets Chaser, needs a few more. Gets another. Balls with a double kill, keeps him in it. Now Keen going to dive in onto Moon. Damage is there from the Zed. That should be a kill. Pop is there, and that's enough. Sunday straight into it though, under High and High. Going to try and blow them up on the other side, but they managed to CC him for long enough. Dignitas with 2 clean ones.